All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need
If you
to
actually
get
see
through.
here, we get a
And we'll look for a
hard
healthy
time.
higher
I
low.
would not
have
be
the
eager
bull
to
market
enter a long trade.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Congrats again to the Bulls and congrats to Canada on a historic vote. So we're going to be looking at WED, ACB, APH, and CRON. These are the big four in the space. Going to cover this video, and as soon as I'm done this video, I'm going to start diving into US names and doing research and looking and scouting out plays. And it's been a great 2 weeks in Canadian MJ. Certainly not going to disregard Canadian MJ, and I do still have a position into next week. But there is going to be opportunity everywhere, so I'm going to scout out, see how the U.S. sector is looking. We know there's going to be potential news in the U.S. sector in the near-term future that I think could be a short-term catalyst, and that is the possible axing of Jeff Sessions. If Jeff Sessions goes down, I think it will lead to a short-term bump, and we certainly know Trump is talking a lot of smack about Sessions, and he likes to fire people. So we're going to keep an eye on that, but obviously not going to take our eyes off the Canadian MJ space. So we saw a sell the news reaction to the vote. And that is not surprising for some of us. It is surprising for a lot of us, and that makes sense. You know, newer people, this does not make sense logically. If you are wondering about the psychology and about why we sold off leading up into the Sell the News event, look at the last two Canadian MJ videos that we did. I'm not going to go too in-depth into it, but it's explained really well in those last two videos in terms of what we were looking for. So we're going to start on the weekly time frame on these names, and then we're going to zoom in. And again, if you are a long-term trader, you care about the weekly time frame, or you don't care about it at all, and you're just holding until the cows come home. Or if you're a short-term trader, you're looking at the shorter-term signals. So on the weekly time frame, we have upper wicks forming on these weekly time frames, and that shows profit taking. And obviously, that's apparent at this point. We saw profit taking leading up into the Sell the News event. So where do we stand from here? Obviously, the bulls still have control. Obviously, the future of the sector is still very bright. So there's still opportunity there. And the more opportunity, or I should say the more volatility and volume we see, the more trading opportunity there is as well. So although we saw upper wicks of profit taking, we always need to go into the daily time frame and look at more details and say, you know, how does the daily chart look giving this upper wick on the weekly candlestick? Because it all depends on where the candlestick closes. You know, and if the vote were Tuesday rather than heading into Friday, we would have a completely different looking weekly candlestick. So we do have to keep that in mind and look at the little details. If you are a longer term trader, the uptrend on weed is not going to break bearish unless we lose 33.76. So at this point, that is almost a 20% drop, maybe about 18%, till we drop down and lose the daily or the weekly higher low pattern. So that's not at risk of happening anytime soon. So the bulls are just fine in terms of the longer term weekly pattern. As far as the daily chart goes, we saw the profit taking and we saw the bulls buy the dip on Friday. And that's the reason, closing up at the high of the day, that I did enter a position again after selling a position. And again, I've been fairly small in my positions heading into Friday. So I had a small position that I exited pre-market. Again, CGC, if you are on the US side, CGC has continuously given us opportunities pre-market to sell for higher prices than we can see later in the morning. And that is a consistent theme that's now 4 or 5 times that we've noticed it, and it allowed opportunity to exit as we saw the bid and the ask drop throughout the pre-market into the open on Friday. So exited that position, we dropped down, we had some oversold bounce opportunities, and then the end of the day move we'll check at. But the bottom line is the daily time frame established another higher low. So keep in mind the last higher low established on the daily time frame was 33.76. From that point on, every single day was a higher low. So there's no real consolidation at that point unless we pull back, establish a new base of support, and then look for continuation. So this is our new base of support, 37.11. That's the most important support level if you are on a shorter term time frame. And if we were to break that level and see no follow through from this bullish candlestick, then that would be a little bit of a short-term red flag. But right now, this candlestick is bullish heading into next week. We have only seen the price close higher than this level a few times in the past few weeks. And then overall in the history of WED, it's only happened about less than 10 times. So obviously the price is still very strong. Obviously we're still looking for blue sky breakout. It's just a question of when. And it's going to happen in 2018, absolutely, in my opinion. But there is one thing that is overhanging my comfortability going really long this sector without stop losses, which I would never do. Always have your stop losses, but it's the overall the U.S. sector or the U.S. stock market, which is fine at this point. I continuously put out videos daily or almost daily in terms of the S&P 500 and things like that, so you can keep an eye on it. But if we were to see a significant sell-off, it would affect the Canadian sector. So that's something I always have in the back of my mind. It's not influencing my short-term decisions, but I am aware of that. So when I, suggest to anybody long-term positions in the sector, always going to talk about stop losses, because if the overall market takes a hit, everybody's waiting for a crash. I'm not going to say a crash is coming anytime soon. People that try and time the top do not do well, but it's something to have in the back of your mind. So here on the daily time frame, strong close. Resistance is going to be up here. We can find some shorter term resistances, but 41.12 and 41.40 stand out to me. So on the 4-hour time frame, don't really like anything that stands out clearly there. So I go to the hourly, and again, this is just what I do when I'm doing analysis, zooming into different levels and time frames to get different clues. We saw multiple inside bars. We saw an inside bar break bullish, and in multiple inside bars, they broke bearish and then saw a big move to the upside. So let's look into this big move in just a moment, because I think there was something to it in terms of intentional short squeeze action. But as of right now, I'm watching the hourly time frame. We've got our high. We've got a lower high on the hourly. We dumped down. We saw a bounce attempt. We topped out right around here at 39.92. That's a resistance level. So the first level I'm looking at is 39.92, which we might as well round to 40 psychological to be watching into Monday, and then 41.12 after that. I don't anticipate a huge move for the bulls to just shoot right to higher highs. If we do see continuation to start the week, I would anticipate the need to pull back and establish a higher low in the mid 39s and then see continuation, but it all depends on the volume behind the move. And look at the volume on this hourly candlestick. It is the highest bull volume that we had seen at any point, and it is significant. So why I think it was a short squeeze, look at the 15-minute time frame. Look how tight we got, and we got a clear bear break from a very tight range, where for a couple hours we were trading in a very tight range, and we broke 38.02 to the downside, and it looked like, uh-oh, we're going to see a sell-off into the end of the day, and we're going to see weakness. We did hold a support down here. It was 37.87, and we bounced off of 37.86. So essentially the lowest price that had been hit since 11:30 over a 3-hour span, we hit to a double bottom, and the bulls did bounce off that level. And this is why I think it was a short squeeze. Look at the volume out of nowhere, a bear break, which is a fake out, hoping to trap some shorts, hoping to get a little bit of, maybe someone was looking to fish some buy orders at that point. But either way, there are often times where we see a bull break or a bear break, and if it does not follow through, then it means look in the other direction. And obviously the volume that exploded from that is exactly what somebody was doing, and I do believe it was coordinated because it happened across multiple names at the exact same time. Now, obviously, there's arbitrage for the sector where we see the sector move together, but this spike in volume in 10 minutes, where we see this volume here, and let's just look at it, it's 239, 240 plus 3, so we're talking 667,000 volume, and I'm not going to do the math right now, but if you added up how much volume it took for the previous time to see 10 minutes of volume, we saw pretty much 10 minutes of volume, which would have matched the last 4 hours of volume. That's just a very rough guess, but you get my point. The volume came absolutely out of nowhere, and why would it shoot up that high? The only reason that that's going to happen is if someone is buying large positions with market orders, and those market orders are triggering stops of shorts to have to cover as well. And we know there's shorts playing the space, because I was short playing the space and I flipped it very quickly early on in the morning. And again, not trying to stand in the way of these bulls, so my short trades literally are less than 20 minutes long. But definitely people either entered short on this bear break or were already short on the day looking for the sell the news effect. And this kind of volume forces the shorts to cover. So not only do you have bulls buying market orders, but you have shorts being forced to buy market orders to cover their positions. And that is what leads to a significant, huge move out of nowhere. It makes sense for the huge move to happen right at the start of the morning. That's when the most activity in the market is. But for it to happen in the middle of the day, right when 3 p.m. Eastern hits, it definitely stands out as something not usual. That's unusual, and we look into that. So okay, that doesn't stand out as something that's common. What could be the causes behind it? What could be reasoning? And that's just speculation, but it's my best guess that it was intentional by the bulls, or the other possibilities would be some large institutions or some large whales just saying, I need a position right now. But to see that come out of nowhere after they had a chance to build a position for hours is just not likely. So we saw the huge bull move, and I was actually out for the day when that happened, so missed that. Some people had some stop buy orders triggered, which got them really nice positions on this move, and that was a part of it as well. So market buys of bulls, stop buys being triggered, and stop losses being triggered to cover their positions. So we saw a huge move up all the way to, this line is screwing everything up, all the way up to 39.47, and then I entered on this consolidation on CGC, and we pulled back and established a higher low. So I entered a position saying, all right, if we end the end of the day heading with bull momentum, that daily candlestick is going to be looking fine, and we'll see if we can carry that momentum. And I also considered the fact that over the weekend, there's going to be more hype and more buzz and more people talking about the vote and more articles and more media coverage. The more media coverage, the better. This game plan heading into this vote was familiar to me because I did this exact same play back in the US when Colorado and Washington legalized for the first time. That was monumental for us, not as grand a scale as this, but definitely comparable and something in the past that we can look to as an example. And we saw a sell the news event because the polls were known. When I saw the results of the Canadian vote, and I believe 56-30, that is nowhere near close. And anybody who's following that and with information knows that that's a 95% win if it wasn't even that close. So these bills or these votes that went through in the US, they were very clearly going to pass due to the data, due to the exit poll data that we had for the days before. So again, the move got priced in because the market knew a positive vote was coming, and it was sold the news on the day of this historic event. And the real explosion in the US market took place on the first day of retail sales due to media coverage. Keep an eye out for this. We're going to watch for it in Canada as well. There's going to be tons of media coverage around the world talking about Canada being the first country to fully legalize, and it's going to show all the images of the doors open and the lines out the door, and it's going to talk about the potential revenue and all that. So that's the next major catalyst, in my opinion, just looking back historically for the US and how it played out 5 years ago. So here on WED, significant follow through at the end of the day on increasing bull volume after that higher low is established, and we close with some strength. So I'm heading into Monday slightly in the green, a nice little cushion of profit. And again, I'm still treating position short-term because that's my style of trading. I'm a short-term trader. It's been working very, very well for me over the past few years. I'm not going to change my game plan. If that's not your game plan and not your style, that's perfectly fine. Change your style and do what works for you. But I'm not going to worry about missing out on the boat in terms of, being a short-term trader because I'm in and out all the time. So key resistance for first thing, 39.47, and then we're looking up at 39.85. And you can see the more we zoom in, the more levels of resistance we can get, whether we're looking at the 15-minute time frame or the hourly. But heading into Monday, the first thing that stands out to me the most is the hourly clear lower high pattern and whether or not the bulls are going to be able to break this hourly lower high pattern. So that's it for WED in terms of what we're watching, and it's a little bit different on everybody else. ACB, big bull volume, so we got a clear break of a tight pattern here as well. The weekly chart got really tight. We broke lower highs, so we had a lower high at 12.55, another one at 11.98, another one at 9.19, which has now broken. And then we had another one down here at 8.77. So this week broke two lower highs on the weekly time frame. So now when we do consolidate, we anticipate a higher low to form to remain in an uptrend. We'll watch for a bull MACD cross on the weekly time frame. The daily chart had a significant pullback and significant profit taking. That's not surprising if you saw the videos we were putting out leading up to the vote. We were talking about how ACB was primed for a sell the news reaction because of the historical RSI levels on the 4-hour time frame, and it played out perfectly with a significant sell-off. But again, bulls bought some of that dip, and we're just looking to establish a higher low. The last higher low on the daily was 8.02. We need another higher low to keep the uptrend intact and healthy, and right now 8.88 is the higher low. Best case scenario for the bulls is the low of Friday holding all next week. That would show a ton of strength in this sector if that ends up being the case. So the 4-hour time frame, again, the RSI, all you have to do is zoom back historically. What happens when the RSI gets over 80? It does not stay up there long, and we see sharp pullbacks in big spikes, and that's exactly what we just saw this time around. And again, people have the argument, well, this has never happened before. We can't look back at historical RSI levels. That was probably the most common response to the videos I made last week. But when you get really comfortable with technical analysis, you know that the market is smart. The market knew it was a historic vote, and again, already priced in heading into that event. That's why we ran 20% in just a couple days. So ACB, 4-hour time frame, again, not really liking the 4-hour for a ton of clarity. Really the daily and the hourly chart is what I'm watching the closest on these names. So we have the same kind of pattern where we have our high, our lower high at 980, and now another lower high at 943. So if the bulls want to break 943 first thing on Monday, and then we're going to be looking up at 980 as the next level, and the bulls want to hold this low really badly, even if we have to establish a higher low and then see continuation, need to hold 888 for the bulls to remain in full control on the daily time frame. If we lose that level, that tells us daily consolidation is not done, and we could pull back, another 10+%, all depending on the volume behind the move, which is something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Look at ACB on the 5-minute time frame at the end of the day. 3 o'clock rolls around, huge volume spikes out of nowhere, and this was more of an equilibrium break, so this made more sense in terms of the clear break and traders acting on it with our low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, another higher low. At this point, we're getting very tight and a big bull move with healthy consolidation at the end of the day. This is a 15-minute bull flag, and the bulls are going to try and continue that. But there's a lot more profit taking on ACB at the end of the day than there is on WEED. So that's just a comparison you can make, where in the last 20 minutes of trading, clearly increasing bull volume and bulls loading up, whereas ACB the last 20 minutes, not as clear. A lot more of a struggle. There was high bear volume right before the close, so a different scenario. But we'll see how it plays out. And again, the close is different too. There's more of an upper wick on the daily time frame for ACB compared to WEED. And WEED obviously is the most favorable out of all of these names because of the proximity to its all-time high and the lack of resistance leading up to that all-time high. So APH on the weekly time frame got its bull break as well. That happened already a couple weeks ago, where we had our low, high, higher low, higher high, so breaking the downtrend. Now we established another higher low. The most important weekly level short term is 1125. We've got a couple double tops. 1314 stands out as resistance, and this week we got up to 1304. So the daily time frame on APH, it was hit by the news and the dilution and how the market prices in that dilution right after that news comes out, and that's the case that we saw on APH. But we're watching a tightening equilibrium on the daily with our high, low of consolidation, lower high, and now trying for that higher low at 1150. So a tightening range. This is one to watch on APH. It's definitely a different setup than everybody else due to that reaction to the news, and I'm going to be looking for a trade opportunity here. I love tight equilibrium patterns. The tighter the pattern, the more clear the break, the more traders react to it, and we're going to be stalking this trade for the next week or two. As long as we stay in this tightening pattern, there's going to be an opportunity for the trade when it does break. So we close at the high of the day on APH as well. Hourly time frame, what's it look like? We've got some lower highs to be watching. And the most important level that stands out to me short term as we head into Monday morning will be 1214, followed by 1236. If we get over 1236, there's a gap to fill back to the upside on the hourly chart, so that's worth watching as well. And again, same thing. We're very similar setups to Bitcoin and ACB on the hourly time frame to try and break the lower highs. It's just the positioning on the daily and weekly charts that differ from these names. So APH, I'm not going to trade APH while it's in this equilibrium. I will patiently wait and watch, because we could easily spend the entire next week within this range depending on how crazy or not crazy things get. Kron has been a great trader. The weekly time frame broke the equilibrium bullish at 874. That's when we were acting on this bull break, and we even broke the resistance up at 994 after that. Again, big upper wick of profit taking. There's no doubt about that, but we have to see what the daily chart looks like, and it's just trying to establish the higher low. Again, the last higher low was down at 766, and it was a daily higher low every single day, not giving any pause for consolidation. Now here's our pause for consolidation, and the bulls are trying to make the new daily higher low 876. So again, ideal scenario for the bulls, hold that level heading all next week. That's the best case scenario. Hourly time frame, we already broke the lower high. So the fact that the bulls broke 954 at the end of the day is a good sign. That gives us an hourly higher low and higher high. And even though the bulls could not hold that move into the close, it's more of a clear hourly shift in momentum than those other names have. We have an hourly higher low to be watching of 916. So 916 and 876 are the first key important levels. If we lose 916, that's a bit of an uh-oh for the bulls, because we are heading down to that ideal level to hold all week, the daily low from Friday. Resistance first thing on Monday. We're going to be watching 961, and if the bulls can break 961, 1010 is the next resistance level. And then after that, it's 1056. So bulls on the daily time frame trying to establish that higher low. What happens when we see this kind of volatility and newer price ranges? We see equilibrium patterns happen all the time. I would not be surprised to see that happen, where we saw the high, the low of the dump, and if the bulls to start the week see a little bit of a push and set a lower high and then pull back and a higher low, and watch the range to tighten as APH already is doing, anticipating the potential for Kron to do that as well on the daily time frame. The only thing that would make me say, wow, the bulls are likely to see continuation, is if we saw a very solid bull volume day to the tune of over 1.5 million shares traded. And to see, and again, if you're watching Kron, watch the US volume. At this point, I'm choosing whichever name has the most volume as the leader. And Cron in the US has way more dollar volume than Cron in Canada. So I would be using Cron in the US as the leader and Cron in Canada as the laggard, whereas the volume profile of everybody else has the Canadian name as the leader and the US name as the laggard. It's a little bit different here. So equilibrium, watch on the daily time frame. APH is already in an equilibrium. ACB on the daily time frame. Equilibrium watch, if we bounce up, we'll look for a lower high, perhaps in the upper $9 range. And WEED daily equilibrium watch if we cannot break 4140. So we have nice clear ranges to be watching. The high of the bull move before the sell the news event, the low of consolidation from Friday, and now we're looking to bounce around within that range to start this coming week and potentially to last all of this coming week. Again, volume will be the biggest clue in terms of whether we're going to stay in this pattern or not. Declining volume, we're likely to stay in an equilibrium pattern. So I appreciate you watching. That's a whole mouthful. Definitely a lot of things to be watching, but when you have a nice clear game plan, I had no game plan before sitting down to make this video right now, and now I have a very clear game plan. This is just me running down my analysis. It's taking a little bit longer because I'm talking it out, but that's beneficial, and it helps me to think out loud, and I now know what I'm expecting in terms of a daily equilibrium. I know what hourly levels to be watching, and I know the setup and my game plan heading into tomorrow, or Monday, which is going to be hold my CGC position, see how much bull momentum we can get to start it off. And if it does look like a daily equilibrium is coming, I'm going to lock in my position, looking for that lower high. And then I will probably patiently wait for equilibriums to break, because that's going to give us the most high, or the highest risk reward scenario is waiting for equilibriums to break and then getting in on that break, because the odds of follow through are significant. So I appreciate you watching. Hopefully this was useful. I'll see if I can do a US video. I know I'm about to do some research, and I'll see if I have time this weekend to put out that US video for tickers to be keeping an eye on, just with chart setups I like. And again, the tighter the equilibrium, the better I like that chart. So I appreciate you again. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.